I've read a lot about this game over the years. I've seen all kinds of quotes about it, some positive, some a little negative. Heck, I've even seen it called the game that saved the Super Nintendo. Now, how a game that came out in 1994 saved the console, I'll never be able to understand. Sure, I'll admit it gave the machine a good kick up the butt and probably helped the later day sales quite a lot. But it's not like the machine was in some dire position where it was in need of saving. A lot of games over the years have seemed to focus too much energy on their visuals, sacrificing other key areas, basically trying to sell themselves off the idea of being raw eye candy. And this game has been accused of exactly that. In fact, Shigeru Miyamoto, the creator of Mario himself, claimed that Donkey Kong Country was proof that American gamers will buy anything so long as it just looks pretty. Now, some people believe that the graphics have not aged as well as some of the less complicated games from its sort of time period, but I have to disagree. I like the way the game looks. I like the way it sounds. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Donkey Kong Country. I've already touched on Rare twice while doing this string of reviews. You might even have seen my video on Battletoads. And I said that in the early days of the SNES, Rare released very little. In fact, all they really did was Battletoads and Battlemaniacs. But as I pointed out before, they spent most of their NES profits on expensive workstations. These were used for Killer Instinct, but they were also used for Donkey Kong Country and its sequels. So I guess in this review we'll in a way be looking at if their money was well invested or not. Now, the reveal of Donkey Kong Country itself is a huge story. It's quite fitting that I'm talking about this now with E3 nearly being upon us, because Nintendo revealed this game at an E3, and they used the game's shockingly good graphics as the basis of one of the best reveals that the company's ever done, in my opinion. Now, all of us at the time knew that they were working on the Ultra 64, which obviously went on to be called the Nintendo 64, and we were more or less certain that at E3 we'd see some kind of prototype N64 game or some test footage, that there'd basically be something to pump us up, excite us, and get us desperately needing their new machine. So when they started showing Donkey Kong Country, everyone was amazed by the graphics, and they thought that, well, if this is what the N64 is going to be able to do on day one, then wow, I need one. But then the real shock was pulled. It turned out that Donkey Kong Country in fact was going to be a SNES game. It's kind of important to realise that at the time, Sega were doing all these crazy things to keep the Mega Drive going. They'd had the Mega CD. Oh, let's have full motion video on disc. That'll make the Mega Drive last longer. And then they had what I call the Atomic Mushroom, the 32X. And here you had a SNES cartridge, or what would go on to be a SNES cartridge, that was playing just on a regular SNES and kicked anything Sega had shown on the Mega CD or the 32X completely into the ground. You know, we didn't know a lot back then. We didn't realise that you could put specialist chips in cartridges. We were just like, wow, this game's running on just a SNES. And it really did make the Mega CD and the 32X look like a complete joke. And I guess, Sega had been a bit harsh to Nintendo at times in the past, with their advert that showed Mario Kart running on the back of a caravan and all of their Sega does what Nintendo don't stuff. And this really was sort of Nintendo's chance to stick the finger up and say, suck it, boys. And in this way, I think it succeeded massively. And if anything, I hate to use the term because people go on about it, but Nintendo, to me, absolutely won E3 that year, without a shadow of a doubt. From that moment on, more or less all of my friends were absolutely desperate to get the game on the second of release, or as close as they could. I can't remember how much it went for, with games back then, a minimum of £40. It might have been more. And I knew, though, that I didn't have that money. I'd spent what I had on many other things. So I thought, oh well, I guess this is a Christmas game, meaning a game I'll ask for at the closest Christmas to release. I did all sorts of things to get my games cheap back then, and it's something I've always done. And I hit a stroke of luck. There's this local porn store that used to be near me, and it mostly dealt with records and videos, and it was called Adam's Audio. Now, they sometimes got games and other stuff in, but it was on quite a rare basis. So as I was walking past one day, I saw this Donkey Kong Country cart in the window. It was literally surrounded with old vinyls, car parts, all sorts of stuff you wouldn't, associate with games. And I went in and I asked how much they wanted for it. And they wanted £20. Yeah, £20 for a cart might seem like a lot, but I still own this cart, and with the amount I've played it, it's more than worth the money. At the time though, my thoughts were firmly on not getting left behind. I knew this was a game that people would be playing all of the time until they'd finished it. There'd be school-based discussions about who was the furthest through it, bets on who'd complete it first, and loads of discussions about the best piece of music in the game, the coolest level, you know the thing. At the time I was young and naive, and I never questioned how a cart-only copy of Donkey Kong came into existence so close to its release. I mean, it must have been like a week or a month max after it came out. And I didn't think, where's its manual gone, where's its box gone? It was too soon for them to be damaged, really, or lost. And, there could have been some kind of accident, but thinking back, and knowing the area I grew up in, it's likely there was probably some poor kid crying that his Donkey Kong had been stolen. But if I didn't grab it, somebody else would have done, wouldn't they? Okay, so for those of you who have been living under a rock and don't know, Donkey Kong Country is a side-scrolling platformer. One in which you take on the roles of Donkey Kong and his little buddy Diddy Kong. You have to run, roll, slap, jump and swing your way through, I think it's about 39 levels. Now, you know how in the older Mario games you usually shrink a little before you die, and in Sonic you drop your rings, and then if you hit again you die? Well, in this game, if Diddy gets hit, you can still carry on as Donkey, and vice versa. So basically, both of your monkeys have to die for you to actually lose a life. And you can find barrels with the letters DK on them, and if you are a monkey down and you smash the barrel, then your monkey buddy will return. And this is a welcome mechanic, as it means one little error doesn't always mean total failure. And in fact, if you can quickly find a barrel, then it's just a minor inconvenience. So, if enemies hit you, they hurt you. That is, unless, as DK or Diddy, you're either rolling at them or bouncing on their heads. Another method to hurt enemies is to throw barrels at them, which is pretty cool. You can also throw them in the scenery sometimes, and you'll smash through something and reveal a secret area, which is cool. Each character has his own unique strengths. DK's stronger, Diddy can jump a little higher. On top of this, there's the addition of helper animals that you can find and ride. These animals often help you move faster, but not only that, they offer an extra layer of protection, as if you're hit riding one of these animals, then all that'll happen is you'll lose the animal. Meaning that if you're Donkey riding a rhino and you have Diddy with you, then you basically need to be hit 3 times in order to die. But they're more than just, an extra bit of life. The fact they move different, and it's kind of exciting. It's a bit like in Metal Slug where you find a tank, or it breaks up the gameplay a little bit. You look forward to finding these animals, and it's good that there's more than one. There's a swordfish, there's a rhino. It's always great to put things in to break these kind of games up a bit, to give you something to look forward to. Okay, so when I originally saw the graphics, I have to admit that they blew me away. But in all honesty, when I come back to this game in order to review it, I've still found the graphics awesome. I think that not only are they charming and beautiful, they're absolutely full of character, which to me is even more important. The game basically took the old Donkey Kong character and totally recreated him. It made him the hero we know and love to this day. I wasn't really surprised though, as it's not like I had put Donkey Kong to bed after finishing and never touched it since. This is where I have to strongly disagree with Miyamoto. Donkey Kong is not just a pretty game. Sure, the graphics helped pull us into the game, but the game is so much more than that. I honestly believe that if you stripped back the awesome graphics and replaced them with a more basic style, it would still be a darn good game. Do I think the graphics are unnecessary then? No, not at all. The graphics might not be necessary for the game to be a good game, but they certainly helped. Not only to make it feel like a unique and fresh experience, but they also drew a big audience in to play it. Just like they say that the first taste of a fine meal is made with the eye, this is kind of the way a lot of people were drawn to Donkey Kong Country. They got a look at it and they just got hungry for more. If it had looked more basic, then maybe a lot of people would have missed out on a darn tasty treat, and Nintendo would have lost some serious bragging rights. I guess this answers the question of if Rare's investment in their new computer graphics workstations was a worthy one. Well, seeing as this game was apparently the third highest selling SNES game, and the fact it greatly raised Rare's status, I think you can say that the machines were worth every penny. The thing for me that makes the game really great is the gameplay. It has the same key factor I appreciate in the Super Mario games, and that is the tight controls which make you feel truly in control of your character. You never feel like you die because you were cheated or because something didn't work right. Every death feels like it's your fault. The game always feels fair, and this helps you keep on plunging into it. Yeah, it's not the longest game in the world, but it doesn't outstay its welcome, and darn near every second of it's fun. There's plenty to look at and do, and a large number of secrets to find. The music is brilliant. I love every tune from the title music to the end credits, and it's not just good music. I feel like every piece is a perfect fit for its place within the game. It all matches not just the levels but also the characters. To me, this game is like an almost perfect recipe where every ingredient helps play off the others to strengthen the quality of the overall finished product. I guess in a way with Donkey Kong I kind of need to eat a little slice of humble pie. I'd always been a pessimist, so I fully expected the game to be a little shallow before it was released. Sure, I needed it, but it was a case of not being left behind by my friends. I thought, you know, it'll be alright, it'll be a decent game, but I kind of did sell it short. I did think it was, you know, that ultimately take away the graphics and it would be total trash when put next to the Super Mario games, but I think I was really wrong. This and Killer Instinct turned out to be the games that put the name Rare into my head. Sure, I'd played Battletoads, I'd played their NES games, heck, I owned a lot of the stuff they'd done back on the Spectrum, back when they were called Ultimate Play the Game. But it was after playing this game and Killer Instinct, though, that I would go out and look for games with the Rare logo on them. I have to admit that I even loved a lot of this stuff other people haven't been keen on. I was a huge fan of Grab by the Ghoulies, for example, and Cameo. I had hoped for a while that they'd take all they'd learned over the years, both from making games and their association with Nintendo, and they'd end up making games with a sort of Nintendo flavour on Microsoft platforms. Unfortunately, they ended up spending a great deal of time being made to make Avatar hats and Kinect wavy games. Fortunately, though, they've recently made a game called Sea of Thieves. It's an online multiplayer pirate game which really doesn't look like my sort of jam, but I do hope it's the start of a new chapter in Rare's history and the start of a comeback of sorts. I'll be watching them with interest. As for Donkey Kong Country, I think the game's a definite 8 out of 10. If you want to play it, you're probably going to pay somewhere around £15 for a cart of it. And box copies can go for a lot more, sometimes stupidly high, but I've seen them go for as little as £25. It's also worth noting that if you're interested in the mini SNES, it's on there. Not only is this game a fantastic game in its own right though, it's also the start of not only a trilogy on the SNES, but a whole series of games with Donkey Kong in the lead as a hero. If it wasn't for this game, we wouldn't have the Donkey Kong we now know. And we wouldn't have got Donkey Kong Country Returns and its Wii U Switch sequel, nor would we have had the cool spin-off GameCube drumming titles, the Donkey Kongers. Nintendo might have created Donkey Kong, and they might have even helped him expand his horizons slightly by sticking him in a racing kart with Mario Kart, but we have Rare to thank for taking him from the level of almost forgotten villain and instead making him a star within his own right. And I'm just glad that after Rare left for new pastures that Nintendo managed to take the ball back and run with it. What can I say but Viva la Donkey Kong. May you rock forever, dude. And that's it for now from me, Kerr9000. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you.